Okay, it's Derby Day. We've taken the precaution of stopping into Rattle and Hum on 33rd Street for a quick pre-match beverage. This is otherwise known as taking the edge off what's about to happen. I'm here with Paddy and Jeff. Jeff is drinking something that looks very dark, sticky, and has about a 10% ABV, so he's going to enjoy the derby a little more than the rest of us. We're also joined by Micah, who's come all the way from Melbourne in Australia just to watch the derby with us in New York, so we have a truly Commonwealth contingent to watch this game. Chaps, the obvious question, how are we feeling? Paddy, I'm going to come to you first. Feeling confident?
I've got nausea, stomach churning. I feel like I might throw up any second soon. I'm not sure
what you get for drinking a beer called Radiant Pig.
Yeah, we're drinking a beer called Radiant Pig, thanks to James. And also very hungover last night. As far as the match, not confident, but I don't mind that lineup. I think it's structured in a way to soak up the pressure and then catch them on the break with Fletcher up top. So I'm not as big of a hater as everybody else in the lineup. I think it'll be okay. We need to get that first goal though.
Wow, Paddy almost sounding like he might have some green shoots of confidence. Mika, I'm just going to hope that Australian kind of enthusiasm is going to overpower the experience of watching Wednesday this season. Are you in any way confident for the match to come?
No, but a little bit. My optimism will go as far as to say I think a very optimistic and very, very lucky and very hard fought 1-1 draw. If I'm going to come out with a prediction now, and it's a shame that Fessie's not on the bench. That was kind of one of my kind of caveats of hope. That is sadly now no longer. But I still think with the side that we've got and a little bit of luck on our side, we'll get a point.
Confident Wednesday, hoping for a draw. This is the upper elm of I guess what we would call to be positivity these days. Jeff, can you take that up a notch? Any kind of reasons for us to be cheerful this afternoon as you get down to the bottom third of your extremely strong pint?
I'm pretty sure I used up all my luck for the day, catching the 7 and the 6 in complete stride and not having to wait for either train. But I was feeling like, I used up all my luck. Then I was getting off the 6 train to walk over here, and I was face to face with this dude wearing one of the little Drake things with the owl on it, like the Jordan logo ones. Like that looks just like the one they ripped off from Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah, I'm just like, this is a sign. This is a sign, and I'm just gonna keep drinking until I convince myself it's a sign.
I think maybe we could just keep drinking and avoid watching the game. That might be the best way of doing things. But as Paddy said, we are drinking a New England IPA called Radiant Pig, and it's called No Half Stepping. So you can either take that as an omen of foreboding or an omen of goodwill, depending on your predication. So Mika, you've gone for 1-1. Not Mika, not the artist formerly known as Micah. There we go.
I'm drinking the 10%.
I'm already twisting names. So you've gone for 1-1, the erstwhile draw. Jeff, Paddy, I'm going to put you on the spot. Your score predictions.
I already said on the podcast that it was me 1-0 with a reach crossbar post in. So I'm going to stick with that. Why not?
I put a bet on earlier on. I've got both teams to score, Wednesday to win, Ballon to score first. And if that comes through, it's about $300 coming my way, so I'm going to stick with that.
Only 300.
Yeah.
What do you put on, 50 cents?
It was two separate bets.
Okay.
Drinks are on Paddy if everything goes to plan. I've kind of shot myself in the foot here because, as you said, Jeff, we've already given our predictions. So unfortunately, I went for a 3-1 United win. So I guess I'm locked into that. But we'll find some more Wednesday nights in Football Factory, and we'll get a few more score predictions before we get to kick-off. So for now, gentlemen, let's down our pints and head down the street. Okay, so the derby is done. The Christmas lights are on in the Football Factory, and Jeff, we just got an enormous present in the form of a clean sheet. Your post-match reaction, literally on the whistle.
0-0, and you fucked it up. 0-0. I've been drinking a lot.
Jeff is a bit squiffy. I've got to be perfectly honest here, but
so I've watched matches against Barnsley, and it's the worst 90 minutes of football I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that was a pretty atrocious game of football to watch if you were a neutral, and we're going to speak to a neutral in a second. But as a Wednesdayite, we took our medicine and we lined up in 2 banks of defence. We basically absorbed United pressure for nigh on 93 minutes, and for the first time this season, we have a clean sheet. So, I mean, surely that's job done.
So the 2 banks are normally 4-4. It's like 7-3. So it worked, and full credit to Cameron Dawson making the penalty save, and it was just absolutely no ponderous offense. Ponderous. But the what the pundits say.
I think Jeff's being a little bit generous there in the sense that even describing our offense in any form would suggest that it existed. We didn't really see much of it.
I guess who's your man of the match then?
For me, I think you've got to give it to Cameron Dawson. I think he did admirably. The penalty save was a tough penalty to get to. Getting down to his left, he marshalled the defence well. He positioned himself well with a series of onslaught of United crosses from deep.
He actually caught the ball when it came to him.
He didn't punch. So no, I give it to Dawson, especially after the pressure he's been under, and Michael Hector as well. Honourable mention.
Very good. Yeah, I don't. Like, it was a repeat of January in a lot of ways, but the problem is, as you said to me before we started recording, it's been 10 months. Also, we had 11 men for the entire match. When you're down to 10 men, playing that way is acceptable, even admirable. But when you have 11 men, it might be
Well, to be fair, after what we said pre-match, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, in the game review on the pod next week. One man who we didn't think might show up, despite being in the 11, was Tom Lees, and he actually had a fairly solid performance. Maybe a little bit back to not the Tom Lees of old, but at least not the Tom Lees of the last 4 weeks.
I mean, he wasn't asked to do much other than stand in the box and defend for most of and he's very capable of doing that. I don't want to malign him more than we have in the last 6 months, but yeah, it's. All in all, it was a good point. I think we would have all signed up for this result coming into the match, and it was an absolutely brutal 2 hours spent watching terrible. And the thing is, after the first half, really, United looked very dangerous in the first half. The second half, they weren't really any clear-cut opportunities. They don't look like. I think they just ran out of pace. They ran out of ideas to a certain extent, and it was kind of there for Wednesday for the taking. Matthias for Penny, I thought was a logical sub if you weren't going to go full bore for Zhao for Fox. But again, it's only make one sub across 90 minutes. And I'm sure they're going to sell this as a good result, and maybe it is, and it gives you something on 4 straight losses going into the international break, but. I don't know. It probably saves Jas's job to a certain extent. A bad result here, I think, would have been it, as we said, sort of in the pregame. But I'm not. It could have been way worse. That's my closing remarks. It could have been way worse.
So there you are. You have a sanguine, if slightly pummeled Jeffrey Pasternoster, who is now working his way down another pint, not quite of the vintage that we had before the start of the game.
Brown.
It's still brown. And we've got the All Wednesday screening to look forward to. So, Jeff, thank you. Well done for bearing with the derby, and we'll speak on the pod next week.
Always a pleasure, James.
Right, so it's finished 0-0 at Bramall Lane.
God.
Thank God, says Bianca Winter from the New York Owls, making her debut on the Owls Americast. B, that was a torturous 90 minutes. How did you find it?
Well, not as torturous as I thought, though. I mean, I had low expectations coming in, and we've played worse than that in recent matches. So I was expecting bad.
So let's just qualify worse. When you say we've played worse, you mean worse defensively?
Obviously.
Given there was nothing else going on.
Yeah, but you're right, clean sheet, that is something to celebrate, and not being raped by the pigs, great. I can't say raped on air, can I?
You can, this is a podcast. As long as you qualify it in the fact that was a metaphor and in no way an inference of any form of behaviour by Sheffield United fans. Okay, so a better defensive performance. What about the atmosphere down here in the Football Factory? Did you just detect any hint of the smell of pork down in New York today?
There was a lot of talk of, I think it was called pork roll. We're getting an education down here about American foodstuffs and, what you are legally allowed to call ham.
Otherwise known as a large amount of salt, apparently, with the hint of pig about it. This was the topic of conversation, principally because the football was pretty awful. But in the context of our first clean sheet of the season, who was your man of the match?
Dawson. I mean, saving a penalty, that was fucking great, and that last save. What a fucking relief.
So, for context, this is literally 2 minutes since Dawson saved the free kick that was and brought an end to the game. So, everyone's on a bit of a high now. It's Friday afternoon in New York. We have a clean sheet. We've not lost to United.
We had a great sense of humour today also. As a fan base, I think there was some trepidation going into it, but we kept laughing.
I think it's called gallows humour, Pete. And On that note, what's your expectation for the rest of the season?
I don't think we're going to surprise ourselves, but I think we'll cling on. I don't think we'll be having relegation battle, but I also don't really think we'll see playoffs.
So, in other words, a season of mid-table mediocrity. We're nothing if not consistent on the Isles of Americas. Bianca, thank you very much. Enjoy the All Wednesday screening.
Thank you.
All right, so we're catching up with all the New York Owls now after that magnificent 0-0 draw. Backs against the wall job for Wednesday at Bramall Lane. Joe, your reaction to what was a scintillating 90 minutes of football?
I feel like I'm a bit more negative than everyone else around here, which is pretty abnormal considering that like I've kind of not experienced the worst of Sheffield Wednesday. But I just can't help but feel that we are just a much worse team, and we are very fortunate to get a 0-0 draw.
Fortunate may well be the accurate statement. I've got Jeremy here, who's wearing, by the way, the 1996 away shirt, 1997 away shirt actually, with the kind of the Netherlands orange number, which I'm kind of jealous about because it looks awesome. What was your thoughts on the game? Obviously, that's a shirt from times that were better, but a satisfactory result today.
Celebrating the clean sheet. First clean sheet of the season, and I'm happy with that.
Really, you can't say much more than that, right? That's about as much as you can get. Who was your man of the match, Jeremy?
Michael Hector.
He was like a colossus at the back, especially when he was literally just striding down and kind of just walking all over United's attacking lineup, right?
Oh yeah, it seems like the only defender we have that can anticipate what's going to happen around the area, can read the play, knows when to leave the boot in. It's like proper defender.
He's got a little bit of the old-fashioned defensive nous, which maybe he can teach a few of his teammates. What about you, Joe? Any stand-up performance for you today?
Well, I have to agree on Hector. He's just so much better than anyone else out there. He just looks fantastic when we're defending. It's good to see someone at the back that we could actually feel pretty comfortable in. And I was saying earlier that I kind of worry that he doesn't deserve to be in like the lone limbo that he's been in for a while. He's a good player.
So I guess the trick is we need to get out of FFP limbo and maybe sign him up for maybe a slightly more organised 2019-20, right? But hey, look, there's smiles on Wednesday's faces tonight, so we're going to go off and watch the All Wednesday film. Jeremy, Joe, thank you very much.
Yeah. Cheers.
So this is a remarkable thing. I've in the post-match melee in the Football Factory, I've landed upon an optimistic Wednesdayite, and no surprises, it is our Antipodean Wednesdayite. It's Micah, not Mika, who tells me that he feels optimistic about the way that game went out.
I feel like that's potentially a turning point. It's our first clean sheet. I think we weren't playing for possession. We weren't playing for shots. Probably weren't playing for winning. But we actually defended exceptionally well as a team. We saved a penalty, and they really didn't have much shots apart from that. And there was an opportunity to perhaps sneak a win there in the closing stages. But I don't feel like I can't think about an individual player that was actually that was underperforming.
It's an entirely fair statement, isn't it? For the first time this season, they actually performed as a unit. Yeah. It was a very deep unit. It only took up about a third of the field, but it was an effective unit and at least keeping United out and repelling the attacks. Yeah. Did anyone stand out for you in terms of just the way they approached the game and the way that they repelled the United offence?
Look, I thought, you talk about we talk about different 3-5-2s and 4-4-2s and different formations. I think we played with a 10.
Live on air.
Was our we've got shots now.
Yeah, Jeff has just brought over some Jägermeister live per interview.
The formation was 10, which was essentially just 10 defenders. But I think in terms of stand-up performers, I thought Matt Penny had an interesting game because he was playing in a more advanced role, and he was had an opportunity to kind of flex his attacking muscle. I thought.
Are you sure you saw that? Because I didn't see much attacking muscle in that team. But okay, he had a couple of flurries forward, right?
It's a work in progress. I thought Jordan Thornley had an exceptional game in defence. I thought Tom Lees was back to close to where he should be in the terms of his defensive capabilities. And I thought Hector had an outstanding game in defence. And of course, Cameron Dawson, saving a penalty and pretty much rock solid, even coming off his line and saving things and seemingly organising his defence. So there's a lot to take out of the game.
It's interesting kind of listening to people. I think Hector, Dawson all standing out, but a word about Jordan Thornley's little chip pass in for I think one of our only attacks in the second half. It was sort of Messi-esque. So maybe that's part of our kind of renaissance when we start to recover from this evening's escapades.
It's the youth all the way. We've got to believe in the youth because I believe they're the future.
Well, let's hope they are, because the elderly chaps on the Wednesday bench probably aren't. With that, we're going to take your Aussie enthusiasm. We're going to take a few shots that Jeff is wafting under our nose right now. So, Micah, thank you.
Right here.
Cheers.
All right, so things have quietened down a little bit in the football factory after the derby, but the noise you may be hearing in the background is the actual crowd noise of the 1991 Rumbelows Cup final victory against Manchester United, which we're playing as something of a warm-up for a very special event here in New York. So I'm here with Paddy, who has coordinated something that we probably won't get a chance to do again, Paddy. So I wonder if you could maybe just introduce what we're about to spend the next hour of our post-match Friday evening doing here on 33rd Street in New York City.
Yeah, so we heard about obviously the All Wednesday film, which Matt Exton directed and created. And the first thing we wanted to do was to get it down into the football factory so people can watch it in the US, people can watch it in New York. So I reached out to Matt. He was very kind and very up for the project, so we basically worked with him until he had a version he could share with us in New York. So here we are. It's after the United game. Thankfully, we didn't lose horrendously. Otherwise, I think it might be a different kind of context to watching a film about Wednesday and Wednesday's fans. And I'm looking forward to it. It's a nice thing to cap off a Friday night in New York. You get to show some of the American fans that we have over here that aren't as steeped in the history of Wednesday as some of the older fans like us, me and James are. And you talk about kind of what it's like to support Wednesday. I think that's going to be... It's almost educational in some respects, some people. And also for people like us that have followed Wednesday all our lives, I can see it being a little bit emotional at times.
I've got to be honest, so we're not even watching the film yet. I'm looking over Paddy's shoulder, and in the replay of 1991, Wednesday have just literally won the Rumbelows Cup, and I'm getting a little bit teary just looking at you. And that's only because Chris Turner is holding the most beautiful Sondico gloves bag, which reminds me of being like 11 years old. So it's a special opportunity for our New York Owls to watch this. This is happening across America as well tonight. So just to kind of try and give you a sense, we're in the football factory in New York City. There's about 20 Wednesdayites who've been here watching the game. People from all across the US in terms of background. We've got an Australian owl. We've got a lot of expats as well. But in Bluffton, Ohio, in Portland, in hopefully other places in the coming weeks, in New Orleans and otherwise, we're going to be showing this film in a way that Wednesdayites across America can just engage with what it is to be a Wednesdayite, Paddy. And I think it's a wonderful testament to what's going on in terms of the development of the fan groups across the US right now.
Totally. And like I say, I love the fact that everyone's going to have a different experience from this, right? Everyone's going to have a kind of... This experience is going to like, I was there at that time, or I empathise with this, or I feel that and I watched that. I was there with those people. Some people might even know the people on the video, which is fantastic. Some people won't even remember the dates and times. And for us at Owls Americas, we are always opening our arms to new fans and old fans around creating experiences around Sheffield Wednesday and just being part of the Sheffield culture. So this for us is a fantastic opportunity. So I want to thank Matt Exton a lot for sharing this film with us. And thanks for the club as well for sharing it as well.
The one thing I'm looking forward to is in 30 years' time when Matt Exton releases All Wednesday 2. And we look back on the formative experience that was recording this podcast and watching a 0-0 Dow draw at 2:45 on a Friday afternoon in Sheffield. As you can hear, Jeff is coming over to us. The Rumbelows Cup final has finished, so we are going to go over to the screening. We'll speak to you later. So we've just concluded the inaugural screening of All Wednesday in New York City, and in an opportune moment as we were heading to the bar at the end of the screening, Paddy has pulled us back because we have found something of a Wednesday legend here in the Football Factory. And I don't mean a Wednesday legend that is well known, a Wednesday legend that has just become known to us in the form of the true founder, the original New York Owl, Simon, who, it transpires, has just pointed out that he watched the 1993 League Cup final not in Wembley, not in England, but in Sunnyside, New York. Simon, I just want to ask you, how did you come to be a Wednesdayite, and what were you doing in Sunnyside, New York in 1993 to watch Wednesday in a bar probably before half of us were born?
So I'm a Wednesdayite because I'm a multi-generational Wednesdayite, and how I watched it was because the only place to watch it was in Sunnyside at that time in New York.
And when you say a multi-generational Wednesday, I heard you saying that in a thick American accent, which belies the fact that you were born in
Sheffield.
So we have something of a ringer here, which is a Sheffielder who became an American who was in Queens. And you were just talking to our own Paddy Jones and pointing out that you could recognise his locality to a tone by the note of his accent. Where did you think Paddy was born?
I would guess in Queens or something. Maybe Sunnyside.
Fuck off.
Paddy, of course, being a native of Mexborough. What do you think of Paddy's Mexborough accent?
Really poor.
It is shocking. Maybe you could tell us a little...
Get him here to talk about my accent when it is the original New York Owl. The original New York Owl.
So we're going to just ask you a moment. The 1993 League Cup final, obviously a disappointing day for Wednesday, but hopefully a day full of camaraderie for you with other Wednesdayites in New York 30 years ago. Could you tell me how many other Wednesdayites were in that bar with you on that sunny morning, I guess, in Queens?
Facebook or Twitter?
Absolutely zero, as far as I could tell.
Not even any kind of jolly Wednesdayites who happen to have moved here for work?
No, there were like maybe 150 very rabid Arsenal fans.
Were there any John Harkes fans there, maybe?
Somewhat.
John Harkes fans, maybe, from my previous 2 years?
There were a couple later that I noticed that they're in the back. They didn't make any noise, though. I didn't feel any solidarity with them.
You maybe hear Jeff in the background who's just chipping in about whatever's going on in Sunnyside. Simon, another question. So a few weeks later, we obviously had another cup final, arguably a more important cup final. It was the FA Cup final. Did you find yourself watching that game in New York as well?
I did, in a new place that was at the time unknown to me called the Sporting Club.
The Sporting Club is unknown to all of us. Where is that?
There was this place in Tribeca called the Sporting Club, very large, that actually started to show some British sporting events, including football.
And this again is 1993. Now, the important point here is that in watching the All Wednesday screening tonight, we've not only celebrated the fact that Wednesday have a fan base that extends across the Atlantic. We've had 20, 30 maybe Wednesdayites down here for the screen tonight. But it goes back a lot longer than any of us realise. So it's since 1993. Have you been able to follow Wednesday consistently here in the States, or how's your Wednesday fandom continued?
Okay, so I go back and I watch Wednesday. I always follow Wednesday. I go to Legends, which is clearly the center for Sheffield Wednesday fandom in the latter day. But then back in the day, there was. Close it off for a second while I remember. Could I edit this, right? Okay. So.
First week in December, your ESPN Plus.
Okay. Oh my God.
We'll take a pause and I'll ask the question again. So, take a second.
What was the?
It's always the first.
So 3, 2, 1. So Simon, post 1993, how did you continue to follow Wednesday?
Okay, so actually, I want to take us back a little bit. Before 1993, the real place to watch soccer in Manhattan was O'Hanlon's. They had the first, it appears, Setanta connection. I remember actually during the World Cup, I think it was the World Cup, that Sean, who worked there, calling up Sean who is the owner of Setanta, actually turned out, according to the advertisements, and telling him to adjust, and he was in San Francisco, to adjust the settings on the satellite to bring it in more clearly.
So you could see Wednesday in all its glory. But you said this is earlier than 1993, so this is like when? 1991 too?
This is been 1991 too, yeah. So
this is our true heyday when we're winning the Rumbelows Cup and we're getting promoted and we're heading into the first division.
That's true. Okay.
So Simon, we're going to finish this off by saying you've discovered tonight that there is an enormous group of Wednesdayites, but you've been hanging out with us for a little while, so you kind of knew that already. Do you speculate on the existence of any other Sheffield football fans in New York City, since you are the sage of all things?
Yeah, I think there may be a secret cache, a secret den of Sheffield United fans somewhere. I bet.
The sage says that there are Sheffield United fans. Truth will be found, and from now on we're going to rattle and hum. Thank you, Simon. So we've just concluded the filming of All Wednesday in New York.
I have to edit this goddamn bullshit when you're done with it, don't I?
3, 2, 1.
Shut up, Jeff. 3, 2, 1. So we've just
That's staying in the show, to be clear.
Fuck off, Jeff. 3, 2, 1.
We get 4 more shots of Jaeger.
I'll try it one more time. 3, 2, 1.